Not all collections are sent to the credit bureaus. Collection accounts can drastically drop your credit score, and many people never figure out how to get those points back. When you have a collection on your credit report, banks can clearly see that you had a previous relationship with another bank or financial institution, and you pretty much said, you. This makes it extremely difficult for banks to trust you. You want to see if you can work something out. Here's what you need to say. In this video, I'm going to break down the biggest mistakes that people make with collections, starting with number one, disputing the collection without doing anything in real life. Let's face it, we all want collections removed from our credit reports, but that's really just problem number one. We have to focus on why the collection happened in the first place. If the collection is accurate, then you need to address it. Stop listening to people telling you don't pay those collections. Stop listening to people that say, well, you don't have to pay that company money. You didn't sign an agreement with them. It's amazing to me how many YouTube overnight credit attorneys just popped up out of nowhere, and everyone all of a sudden has this information accurately. Let me tell you something. Those people are wrong. Those are the same types of people that banks and credit unions already don't trust. And it makes it difficult for people like you and me who are trying to do this the right way. You can easily pick up the phone and call the original creditor or the collection company. Trust me, they're waiting on you to call because you ain't been answering the phone. And when you're talking to them, you want to see if you can work something out. Here's what you need to say. Hello, yes. I see that I owe you guys some money. Right now, I don't have the full amount that you're asking for. However, I can pay half and I have that available to pay right now. If I'm able to pay that right now, are you willing to remove this from my credit report? And then are you also willing to send this agreement in writing? That could be via email, fax, or even a letter in the mail. What's your thoughts on this? Right? That's the end of what you say. That's now you can change that up however you want to change that up, but for the most part, you want it to be similar to that. What are you telling them? You are telling them that one, you're willing to do something about the collection in general. Two, you're saying, hey, I'm willing to pay right now. Three, hey, I'm not trying to pay in full, but in exchange, are you willing to remove this from my credit report? What do you think they're going to say? Here's the best part about this. It costs nothing to ask. Now, there's a couple things to remember here as well. Number one, companies legally do not have to settle with you, whether it's a collection or whatever the case is. A settlement is simply a nice gesture. Number two, settling a debt is not a bad thing to do, especially if it's a collection. The thing is that on your credit report, it may or may not show that the debt was settled, but people think that affects them. It does not affect you in any way on your credit report or on your score in any way, shape, or form. Number three, the average settled amount nationwide is 73% of the original balance. So while some people, let's say, for example, would have a collection for, let's say, $1,000, that same person could have paid 7,300 if they just simply asked if they could pay a lesser amount. Number four, I mentioned this, but I want to make sure you guys got it clear, and that's to get it in writing. This could be email, fax, or a letter in the mail. Number five, see if you can pay them with a debit card instead of a bank draft. It's nothing wrong with a bank draft, but sometimes, people may feel a certain way if you're giving someone your account number and routing number, especially if you made an agreement to pay less than what you owe. So you may feel more comfortable going with a debit card. The problem is some of y'all got them cousins out there and y'all know who those people are. It might even be you. But those are the people who would pay for something and then call the bank and say, hey, I don't know what this is, just so they don't have to pay for it. The problem is, since so many people do that, it's tough to trust people when they pay with a debit card nowadays. But if you can, try your best to do it with a debit card, not for that reason, but simply because you don't want the collection company to have your account number and routing number if at all possible. The second biggest mistake that people make with collections is thinking they're going to get all of their points back if they dispute it and it gets removed. Here's the thing, guys. The issue is that collections, as they get closer to the 7 year of removal, for those who don't know, that means when an item is on your credit report with no activity for 7 years, it's going to get removed from your credit report. Collections will eventually fall off as well. However, as it gets closer, not just collections, but any account, good history, good account, bad account, any closed account that gets closer to that 7 year mark, again, positive or negative, will not have the same amount of impact as if it was fresh. So even though, yes, it is something negative and it may have cost you 30 points when it first hits your credit report, does not mean you're going to get 30 points if you were to get it disputed and if you were to get it removed. Now, don't get me wrong. Could you dispute something that's brand new and it gets removed and you may get all your points? You most definitely could. But most people that dispute collections, they usually have some age on it. Number three, thinking a collection cannot be sold to another company. Let me keep this simple. Let me keep this straight. All right. You pay who you owe. Let me give you guys an example. Let's say, for example, you are renting an apartment. You've been there for 3 years, and let's say your landlord is Mary. You've been paying Mary your apartment rent for 3 years straight. Mary decides to sell. Watch where I'm going. Mary decides to sell that property that you are paying rent in. Okay, she sells it to Bob. I'm gonna ask you guys a question. When rent is due next month, who do you pay, Mary or Bob? Some of you guys will say Mary. Y'all can stop watching this video right now because this ain't for you. No, I'm kidding. But it ain't Mary. You would pay Bob, the new owner. Why is that? Because now Bob now owns the property. Even though you did not sign a lease with him, that lease carries over to the new owner. In many states, collections are going to do the same thing. Listen, don't get mad at a new company for buying your old debt. Get mad at yourself for not making an arrangement. Now, this is on the assumption that if you know the debt is yours, we got to stop getting mad at stuff we know is our fault. Okay. That's number one. Number two, you want to make sure that it is accurate. If it's not accurate, then you want to go ahead and dispute it. Now, there is a third option with Bob, and that's not paying Bob. But if you don't, you most definitely going to be kicked out and all your stuff going to be on the curb. Like I said, you pay who you owe. And that brings me to my next point. Number four, calling the original creditor. Now, the reason why I like to do this is simply because it's nothing against the collection company, but when you're calling the original creditor, sometimes they have better repayment plans, and then of course that doesn't mean that the collection company may not have either. But find out what your options are. At the end of the day, they're collecting for the same company. Some original creditors will say, "Hey, no, call the collection company. That's all on them." But some original creditors say, "Hey, no problem. We'll take the money and we'll just inform them, and then we'll go from there." Number five, not all collections, and I'm gonna say this twice, not all collections are sent to the credit bureaus. You heard that right. Not all collections are sent to the credit bureaus. And there's a few reasons why. Number one is that it costs them money to report to the credit bureaus. So there are some companies who opt out of doing that because it costs money. The second reason is why some companies like to use it as a way to show that they're transparent. If they're transparent, saying, "Hey, we're not here to make your life worse by putting this on your credit report," which, by the way, that's really the only leverage these companies have outside of really taking you to court, which would take too much money. But that's the only leverage that they have. So for a company to say, "Hey, we're transparent, we just want to work something out with you," then of course, you can do it like that too. Overall, you'd be surprised how many collection companies do not report that debt to the credit bureaus. So just because you get a collection letter in the mail, I'm not saying don't pay them. I'm just saying it's not going to always be on your credit report. In short, don't make these mistakes. You will save yourself money. You will save yourself time. Now, if you like this video and you like this channel, you most definitely are going to like this next video. I'll see you there.